The morning before my husband came home, I was so nervous I kept pacing up and down the hallway waiting for Lucy to call. Harry didn't help. He was in the sitting room on his swing. I could hear him humming this creepy tune the whole time. Whenever I checked in on him, he got excited and started kicking his legs, with his hands out for me to pick him up. But I couldn't even bear being in the same room with him, never mind holding him. The second Lucy arrived I was gone out the door, even though it was only 8 a.m. and my husband wouldn't be discharged until noon. I got a coffee and sat in my car at the hospital car park to think before going in. I needed to figure out a way to protect my husband when he got home, but there was a million thoughts going through my head all at once and nothing I thought of made any sense. I would need to be there the whole time with him to stop Harry, and that would be impossible. I was so lost in thought that I ended up being late. My husband was a little annoyed with me. He was sick of being in hospital and just wanted to get home. On the way back I tried to talk him into staying away from Harry. I told him he should take it easy until he was fully recovered, but he really missed him and wanted to spend as much time as he could with him after their time apart. As soon as he got home, he went straight over to Harry, picked him up and started playing with him. The two of them looked so happy together. Harry was laughing and jumping around with excitement. It was hard to believe he would ever try and hurt his dad. Everything was going well, I thought, until he put him up on his shoulder as he went out to the kitchen. Harry started looking up and down at the bruises on his neck, as if to check out his handiwork. Then he grabbed onto his throat with both hands and squeezed while staring at me with that hateful look in his eyes. Even though the swelling had gone down a lot on my husband's neck, it was still extremely sensitive, so he screamed in pain. I jumped up immediately to try stop him, but he wouldn't let go no matter what I did. Eventually I picked up one of his bottles, opened it, then threw it in his face and he let go. By then my husband was nearly in tears. I was expecting him to be some bit thankful. Instead he got angry with me for what I did to Harry. He said Harry was just a baby and couldn't have done it on purpose. I just agreed with him and apologized. What else could I do? He was one step away from getting me locked up in a mental hospital already, and if that happened, who would protect him from Harry? He had already made me an appointment for the following day with a psychiatrist, which I was not looking forward to. I had no idea what to say to them, and I knew if I told them the truth I'd be locked up and they would throw away the key. That night was torture. Harry kept on crying. I think he was hoping my husband would go and check on him, but I had the sound turned off on the monitor so he couldn't hear. I stayed up all night watching the monitor to make sure Harry didn't leave his room. By morning I was exhausted. When my husband saw me, he said I looked ill, so I used that to get out of going to the psychiatrist, but unfortunately, he made an appointment for the following day. I shadowed my husband all that day, which made him uncomfortable at times. He must have thought I didn't trust him with the baby. I told him I was just afraid Harry might hurt him again, which didn't go down well. I could see in his face he thought I had lost it completely. That night when my husband went to sleep, I wedged the bedroom door closed with part of a picture frame so Harry couldn't get in and I could get some sleep. I think Harry knew because he was going psycho in his cot. He even ripped one of the bars off, and threw it at the camera. He looked so angry that I was afraid to go near him, so I put the monitor under the bed and went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, my husband wasn't beside me. I panicked and ran into Harry's room, but he wasn't there, so I ran downstairs. I was relieved when I found them in the kitchen eating breakfast. I was happy for a moment until he asked me about Harry's cot being broken, and the bedroom door being wedged closed. I didn't really know how to answer without coming across even more crazy, so I played dumb and shook my head. He didn't say anything else about it, but I knew he was very worried about me by his expression. When it was time for my appointment, he made me get a taxi. I don't think he trusted me driving. I begged him to take me instead so that he wouldn't be home alone with Harry. He refused. He said he needed to spend some quality time with Harry, but I'm sure he thought I was hurting him and wanted to investigate while I was gone. When the taxi dropped me off outside the doctor's office, I suddenly got a really bad feeling there was something wrong and decided to go home. On the way back I began to think, what if I was wrong and it was just nerves? If everything was okay, my husband would never have understood. When I got out of the taxi, I thought I heard screaming. I ran up to the door and tried to put the key in, but my husband swung the door open before I got the chance. He stared me in the eyes, with a look of pure terror in his face. I didn't know what was wrong. I had never seen him like that. His whole body was trembling. He tried to speak 2 or 3 times, but all that came out was grunting noises. He ran away when he heard Harry crying. I tried to chase him, but he was too fast. When I called out to him, he stopped for a moment and turned around. I could see that he wanted to tell me something, but all that came out was another grunt, then he disappeared around the corner. I probably should have been terrified to go back into that house, but I wasn't. I was just angry, really angry, so I stormed back in there, walked right up to Harry, who was sitting in the middle of the table at the time, picked him up and put him up against the wall and said, "What the fuck did you do, you little shit?" He could see by my expression that I meant business, and for the first time he genuinely looked worried. I continued, "You better hope your dad comes back or I am going to smother you with a pillow, you fucking asshole." Then I took him upstairs and put him to bed. My husband had left his phone at home, so I spent the rest of the day trying to ring around all his contacts to try to find him, but no one had seen him. By nightfall I had calmed down enough to check on Harry. As much as a monster he was still my son and I had to look after him. I think he was still scared of me because when I handed him his bottle he jumped back up against the other side of his cot. Before I went to bed, I tied the handle of the door to the banister that was across from it and wedged my bedroom door closed as well just to make sure he didn't get in. Harry was very quiet that night. Any time I looked at the monitor he was lying down. I thought I must have finally got through to him. The next morning was the same thing. He wouldn't even look me in the eye, and any time I went near him he would put his head down. The first thing I did that morning was go shopping for new locks for Harry's door. I got 3 deadbolts and used my husband's drills to install them. I was sure there was no way he would get out after that. Harry was on his best behavior over the next couple of days, which was good, but I had still not heard anything from my husband. I thought he would have been back by then. Everything he had was here. The only family he had that he could stay with was his sister. She lived on the other side of town. I tried to ring her 3 or 4 times, but she wouldn't answer, so, when Lucy arrived I drove over there to try to talk to her. When I got there, he was just getting into his sister's car. He was snow white, and his eyes were bloodshot like he was after crying. He didn't even look at me, he just sat in and turned away. At that moment his sister came out and asked me what happened. She said he barely said a word since he arrived. I didn't even answer her, I just sat in beside him and said, "Please talk to me, you know you can tell me anything," as I put my hand on his leg. He broke down in tears instantly and mumbled, "I am begging you, please don't make this any harder than it has to be. I am truly sorry, but I need to go far away from here where it can't find me." "What do you mean? What happened? Did he do something to you?" I said frantically, "Please don't go, we can get through this, we love each other." I tried to take his hand, but he pulled away. "Don't you see, it's too late for you, it will never let you go now," he said before he started screaming at the top of his lungs, "Get out," over and over again until his sister dragged me out of the car and warned me to stay away. She obviously thought I did something to him. I didn't know what to say, I just stood there with my mouth open trying to process what had just happened as they drove off. My husband was a very logical person, he wasn't the least bit religious, he believed there was always a scientific reason for everything, and laughed at me when I got scared watching horror movies. I didn't know why he was like that, something must have really scared him, so I decided to go home to confront Harry and maybe get some answers. I knew he was afraid of me then, plus I was sure he needed me and that was probably why he had stopped trying to hurt me, so I thought I had some leverage over him. I waited until Lucy was gone and I put Harry to bed before I made my move. I thought if something went wrong, I could run out of his room and lock him in before it was too late. I put him in his cot and said, "I met your dad today and he told me what you did, you monster." His eyes opened wide, he looked taken back by what I said. Then I shouted, "Answer me." He jumped back, so I leaned in closer and whispered, "I am not afraid of you anymore." He turned away and started crawling into the corner of his cot. I could hear what sounded like sobbing. I started to feel bad for a moment, then I heard it, that monstrous roar. It was so loud it knocked me over. When I stood up, I couldn't hear anything apart from ringing in my ears. Then the cot fell over and I couldn't see Harry anymore. I ran out of there. As I was closing the door, I saw the cot coming flying towards me, which hit the door, knocking me back and I nearly fell down the stairs. I jumped up as fast as I could and bolted his door shut, before going into my room and barricading my door with everything I could find. I thought about going to the police, but what would be the point? I would be blamed for everything, and he would be free to hurt whoever he chooses. Besides, what have I got to lose now? My husband's gone for good, and my only child is. I don't even know what he is. I think this may be my last post. He must have gotten out of his room. I can hear him outside my door right now. He is calling me by name, in a voice that I feel is impossible to describe, apart from saying it is not human. I don't know why, but the more he speaks, the less scared I feel. I think it's time to go now. Goodbye. To apologize for my recent outbursts and for blaming my petty, insignificant problems on my precious little boy Harry, especially when there are so many important things I should have been focused on. I can't believe how selfish I was. I should never have tried to hold him back. I blame society. It brainwashed me into believing just because Harry was different, there was something wrong with him, and I let that scare me. This caused him pain. I am still really angry with myself over that. I would have never been able to forgive myself if something had happened to him. Anyway, since when is being different a bad thing? I think people are just afraid of what they don't understand. Some might call him evil. What does that even mean? How many people died in the name of God? Is he evil? Good and evil is how you perceive it. Look at literally every war. Both sides will always argue that their actions are just, yet none could be called innocent with the atrocities that happen in the battlefields, but that's just the world we live in. I will never again make the mistake of believing he is a monster. I was just oblivious to the truth back then, blinded by my own insecurities. I lived my life lost, unable to see the world for what it really was, like so many others, until that special night. I am so grateful that he is so understanding. I don't think anyone else would have forgiven me so easily. Then again, I suppose there is no one else like him out there, which makes me feel so special for having the privilege of taking care of him. I will treasure that for an eternity. I will admit that night when he first opened up, I could not handle it and freaked out. It is a lot to take in for an inferior being like me. That's why most minds crack under the pressure, like that poor babysitter Jean. It was an awful pity. Harry really liked her. But you never know, our paths might cross again. Unlike her, Once I got my head around it, it was as if a veil had been lifted. I could see everything, and it was spectacular. All my worries and fears melted away. I am not ashamed to say I cried. The pure scale and beauty of what he showed me was overwhelming. It was like a dream. How I wish I could live in that moment, forever. Don't worry, you won't be forgotten. Everyone will get their chance, eventually, which makes me so jealous. I wish I could go back and do it all over again. Well, anyways, the past is the past and that's where we will leave it, but the future is much more brighter now thanks to my precious little Harry. I love him so much, it hurts. I just know that he is going to do amazing things, and I will make sure nothing will get in his way. My husband nearly had me believe he was the devil with the way he was acting before he left. So silly. He should have accepted Harry for what he is, and we would be still together now as a family. Which makes me a little angry at times, but it doesn't matter now, nothing does, only Harry. The problem is poor Harry really misses his dad. He wanted to show him the truth, but unfortunately, my husband rudely left before he could finish. Which is sad for him, he missed out on such an amazing opportunity. Lucky for him, not all is lost. Harry was in a forgiving mood and we both agree it would be unfair if he was left out of all the fun, since he was such a big part of how it all began. So, we paid a visit to his sister in hopes of finding out where he could have gone. She was a little bit naughty and tried to keep it a secret from us, but being the exceptional child that he is, Harry knew exactly what to do. Unfortunately, her mind wasn't ready to see the truth and there was a little boo-boo. I guess some people are just too stuck in their ways. With her demons and angels talk, did she not understand that Harry is none of those things? He is so much, much more. I'm sorry if I'm rambling again. I am just so proud of my perfect little boy Harry. It is so exciting. Okay, she told me my husband went to Lord France to find himself. I told her not before my little boy finds him first. Lord ha, can you believe that? I will be honest with you. I never saw him as the religious type, especially after what my precious little boy showed him. I suppose it takes time for some people to see the truth, even if it is standing right in front of them. In the end, we decided it would be a good idea to pay him a visit. I know he would never be expecting it. He will be so happy when he sees us. Harry is so excited he can barely keep it in. He really wants us to be a family once more, even if it is only for a short time. To try relax him, I called a babysitter. I know you might think it's cruel, but is a lion cruel for killing and eating a gazelle or dolphin for eating a mackerel? No, because it is in their nature. These were the needs he had before that I didn't understand. Once they are filled, he will act like the perfect little angel he is again. Besides, he doesn't try to hurt anyone. If they just let him in, they would be like me and live in constant bliss. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case this time and he had another accident. I don't mind cleaning up the mess after him. It's nothing a little hard work and a bit of elbow grease can't fix. There is no point in crying over spilt milk, is there? Plus it was all for a good cause, so I don't feel bad about it. Anyways, there are bigger fish to fry. Our flight leaves at noon tomorrow. Harry tells me when he is done with his dad, he will have a big surprise waiting for me. I can't hardly wait. I just love surprises. I am going to try my best to enjoy this. It will be our last holiday, because when we get home, the real work will begin. I can't say any more, or I will ruin the surprise, and Harry won't like that, will he?